Hey there guys, welcome to lesson number 24. I'm really pleased to be this far into our drawing now. I did go on a little bit further, as I said at the end of the last video, the last tutorial, and what I've done is I've just started to bring the contrast out now in this darker area and in some of these darker recesses of the hair. We're going to be freshening up our kneaded eraser as we always do at the start of any new lesson. So I'm just going to start to pull my kneaded eraser apart a little bit, and that just freshens it up. I'm going to roll it into a ball. We're going to be working with our 2B, 4B and some 7B today. And one of the things that I've been trying to get across to you over on the Facebook group quite regularly is, once you start adding the hair, you can then start to see how much darker or lighter you've got to go in certain areas. So I can see now, as we're starting to build this contrast up in this darker regions in the hair here, that I do actually need to go much darker on the side of this face. So we will start doing that. But like I've said, get a base down in the face area, and then once you add the hair, it does start to change things. So without further ado, let's get started. So I'm going to start with the 2B pencil, and I'm just going to start to try and work in this region down here now, because I don't feel like I've got enough graphite and enough hair building up, because again, this is another one of those areas that we need quite a bit of contrast in. This area here, we're sort of engulfing the white scarf, and we obviously need some value in the scarf there. So by developing this area around it, we're going to find that we give ourselves a better opportunity of creating that scarf with some texture and some volume in there. If this is the first time that you visited my channel, thanks so much for clicking on that thumbnail. My goal really with this series about 2 months ago now was just to start trying to teach people some of the methods that I'd picked up over the last 3.5 years now. I started drawing, it became something of a passion of mine. I watched a few YouTube videos, I guess like you guys are doing now, and from there decided that learning to draw and create some realistic work was something that I wanted to devote a bit of time to. And I went through various different methods. I bought online tutorials and did some online classes and things like that, and really enjoyed them. But what I found was that there's so much information out there that sometimes it's quite difficult to know what's best and what works best. So I wanted to just really try and teach you as much as I could about the methods that I've learned and things that have worked for me, and a few tips here and there that maybe are different to what some teachers may teach you. I don't like pigeonholing people and saying, right, you're only going to do this or you're only going to do that, which is why at the start of this series of classes where we're starting to draw this young lady, we plotted it out using the grid method. It's not my preferred method of choice. I don't particularly like it. I mean, I'm still looking at this now and I've got an awful lot of grid lines still on here. However, some people find it much easier and really like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you as many different methods as possible. I'll share with you my experiences, what I think works for me, and give you some examples of that, and then let you find your own way. We've got a really successful Facebook group. I mean, every morning that I wake up now, we've got, it's really starting to grow into a very kind art group. I mean, there's a lot of art groups out there on Facebook, and they generally just turn into political arguments, religious arguments. Somebody's drawn a picture of Donald Trump on there, for example, and it ends up being a bit of a political argument and whatnot. And I'm pleased to say that our group so far has been rather encouraging, and we're getting new members there by the day. So if you haven't found our Facebook page yet, it's called Tutorial Tuesdays Beginner to Pro. If you just search for that in the toolbar on your Facebook app on your phone or your iPad or tablet, that will pop up. Request to join. I will accept you, and what we like to do in the group is share our own work, our individual work, which is fab. But I also post these videos up there. So this is obviously lesson 24 now. I've been posting a couple a week. I'd like to do more, but I just think it's nice that you guys get an opportunity and some time to catch up without feeling the need that you've got to rush. And we also help one another. We've got some fantastic artists on there. It's not just for beginners. And again, what's nice is we've got some brilliant artists on there, and they're learning new things. I'm learning new things. I've seen some wonderful drawings on there, and as we start to delve deeper into maybe some different techniques in the future, there might be opportunities for some of you to really give some advice out and share your expertise, and we might even do a little bit of cross collab on some of the work. But what I'm doing here with this hair, I think basically what we're trying to achieve here is, how do we draw blonde hair? And that's been the aim of this. Now, when we're drawing blonde hair, what we're really trying to do is we're trying to draw the negative space. And what I mean by that is we're trying to draw the dark areas, the areas that aren't necessarily filled with hair. And with that graphite that we've then got on the page, we're then going to use our kneaded eraser, and we're going to take the white strands of hair out. The important thing when we're looking at blonde hair is it's actually white hair, and we cannot represent a white hair or a lightly coloured hair with a pencil stroke. That's something that I learned very, very early on when I started drawing. And blonde hair initially became something that, having been afraid of drawing blonde hair and not really understanding how to do it, became something that I did quite a lot of. I remember drawing a nice portrait of Princess Diana for my mother, and she had very blonde hair on that. Now, one thing that I must stress, and I obviously don't do it an awful lot, and I've mentioned this before in previous lessons, is turn your paper. I try not to turn the paper too much in the videos because I want you to get the best experience and see as much as you can, but make sure you turn the paper. It's really important, and that allows you to keep your stroke in its most accurate form, where you're finding the most accuracy with your stroke. What we're doing in these lessons is we're using something called a tapered stroke, and the tapered stroke is a series of lines where we're gliding on and off of the paper with each stroke. I'm not scribbling. If you've followed this series of lessons so far, you'll understand how important and how much I stress the importance of trying to maintain the tooth of the paper. If you're using a good quality art paper, I use Strathmore Bristol Smooth. What you'll find, and it was certainly a huge learning curve for me. I mean, I started drawing for the first couple of months just on regular copy paper, the kind of paper that you will see in an office that people are using on the printer. And going from that to actual art paper, I was amazed at how thick the art paper was. It was almost like a card in comparison. And what we have in that is we have something called the tooth of the paper. So it's not completely flat. If you were to look at paper under a magnifying glass, you will find that there's a rough texture to it. Some papers are rougher than others, and it's for you to decide what works better for you. But by pressing on too hard and scribbling and using blending stumps and things like that, what we do is we burnish the paper and we flatten the tooth of the paper out, and that leaves us with very little wiggle room to take value out and use our kneaded eraser, which is a extremely important tool. I'm going to come in now and use my brush, my trusted brush. This is the only implement that I use that resembles blending or a blending tool. I'm just brushing some of this value around a little bit. I need to get some value into this scarf area here. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my monozero eraser. So this is a clickable eraser. It's almost like a mechanical pencil, and it's wonderful for taking out some very fine strands of hair. So I'm just going to come and look in some of these areas where we have some of these lighter hairs, and I'm just going to use my the monozero eraser, like a pencil, holding it in the same sort of place and really trying to get a flowing movement, just following the general flow of the hair. It's very important when we're drawing hair or fur on an animal, for that in that case as well, that we're not too wrapped up with trying to draw every single strand. What we do is we look for basic flow. Obviously this head of hair is going to contain hundreds of thousands of strands of hair, possibly millions. I don't know what the average amount of hair on a human is, but it's certainly hundreds of thousands. Now there's no way that we're going to be able to draw all of that, and why would we want to? I mean, it would take us forever. So what we're doing is we're just giving the person viewing our drawing the illusion that there's layers upon layers. And it's this technique of brushing in some of the value, then taking it out, that gives us that wonderful opportunity to trick the viewer's mind into thinking that what we've got is volumetric hair. We've got lots of different areas and layers of hair. Picked up my 4B there. I didn't really want the 4B. In all of our drawings, in everything that we do, I always start to look for the darkest regions first. There's a few artists out there, there's a few teachers out there that try and teach working from the light to the dark. I don't particularly like that method, for the simple reason that, like we've just pointed out earlier, that we might need to add some more value into the face area here. We understand that because I've added the darks around it. Now, if I'd have started working in the light areas and then working into the darker areas, I may need to go darker than I really want to go because I've gone too dark in the lighter area, if that makes sense. By building up from the dark areas first, what happens is we get to a level where we understand and we're able to balance the values out, and we understand the levels that we're at, and we can say, actually, I'm okay with finishing up now. I don't need to add any more value in this area or that area. We don't need to overwork the drawing. So just looking for some of these darker regions within the light hairs. Because again, even in the lightest of hairs, the lightest coloured hairs, I mean, if we were drawing a picture of somebody with, there's a lot of young ladies, certainly over in the UK, that have this very, very, it's so blonde, it's almost white or almost a silvery colour. I don't know what you call it. Is it maybe a platinum? But I do see it regularly now. But even if we were drawing somebody with hair that light, there would still be a lot of dark regions, a lot of dark shadowed areas, and it's those areas that we really need to capture. Because that then allows us to bring out the lightest strands of hair in the regions that are the lightest. And that's really the fundamentals behind drawing a realistic picture or portrait, is having the contrast between the light and the dark areas, and understanding that even in the darkest areas there's going to be a dark area, and in the lightest areas there's going to be lighter areas even within the lightest of areas. So again, this face is quite light here, the scarf is quite light, but even within this scarf we're going to have areas that are lighter than others. Once you train your eye to see that, you can really then start adding some realism and some depth into your portrait work. I'm going to use my brush again now. Now you can see over in this bottom corner here, we've got an awful lot of graphite that's starting to move into the edges of the drawing that I don't really want any value. So I'm just going to take my kneaded eraser and I'm just going to remove some of that. You can use an electric eraser as well. I do have an electric eraser that towards the end I start to remove it, but I just like to tidy up as much as I can. It's amazing how much graphite moves around, particularly with the pencils that I use, which are the Caran D'ache grafwood pencils. They are quite a loose leaded pencil. Okay, I just want to now start adding a little bit of detail into this scarf. We've got a few sections in there that I'd like to add some value and some detail. We've got it's almost a checkerboard pattern. And even within these, it might be difficult to see over on the video that you're looking at now, but if you look at your reference, even within these small squares, there are darker areas in there. And that's just going to give our eye an understanding of which direction the light's coming from. So it's important that we do try and capture that. It's those very subtle opportunities that we have of really creating and taking our drawing to the next level. So I can see within here that we've got quite a bit of value, even though this is a white scarf. I can see, so I'm going to take my HB pencil now and I'm just going to start to bring out some of those details. And this method of laying down the pencil in this series of tapered strokes is always going to give me the opportunity to take value out. And that is a unbelievably powerful tool and opportunity. Now, I don't need to go overboard with these details. I just need to give the illusion and the hint that there are different patterns and textures within this scarfed area. We can let the viewer's mind do the rest. That's really how our brains work. You only need to go and Google optical illusions. There's plenty of them out there on the internet, and it's amazing how our brain interprets certain things, and we start to see things that are not actually there in something. And that's really how our brains process information. So all we need to do sometimes in our drawing is just give the viewer a gentle push in a direction, and that will let their brain run with it. It's why sometimes when you're looking up at a cloud or something like a rock formation or a forest line or something like that, that we start to see things that aren't actually there. So we'll see faces and familiar things. We're looking up at the sky and we can see patterns and fish and dragons emerging in the clouds, and that's our brain taking information that's there and interpreting it, which is what we try and do with a lot of our drawings. Just giving that hint that there's something in there, that this isn't a completely flat surface. There's a texture to it. Looking for those darkest points again. So we've got some sort of crease here, some sort of fold in the, I'm guessing it's a woolen scarf. And we've got a few folds and creases in there. And it's my job to pull those out. Just giving that hint of a checkerboard type pattern. We've got quite a dark region under here that I've not quite captured yet. I'm guessing that's where the scarf actually starts to go underneath the chin of this young lady, and that is a real good opportunity there for us to separate the scarf from the face. So I'm just going to loosely get that drawn in. It goes up into this curl up here. And it's things like this that over time you start to be able to pick out yourself. And I can remember drawing along with certain artists, and when they were talking about things like this, thinking I'm never ever going to be able to see all of that because I'm so focused on how I'm laying down the pencil and the direction of the hair that I'm missing these subtle opportunities. And that's absolutely true. You're not going to pick them up straight away. It's a little bit like learning to drive. I mean, I can remember learning to drive and thinking there's no way I'm ever going to be able to use my mirrors, use both feet, change gears, make sure that I'm not going over the speed limit, all of these things. And initially you can't. You've got to train your brain to be able to prioritise things, and that's what happens. And it's the same with drawing, really. It's once you've mastered the technique of laying the pencil down, then your brain can almost do that on autopilot, and then we can focus on something else. And it's at that point that you can then start to see things that aren't quite in the right place, or there's a subtle value change that you missed earlier, or there's a darker area that you haven't quite captured that really needs capturing. And that's when your drawings really do start to take on a whole new level. I'm going to brush some of that value in now, because again, I do need some value in this white scarf because it isn't a flat texture. So we're not trying to draw a flat countertop or something. So I'm going to just start to take out a few details with my monozero razor, a little bit like how we were using it for the hair. Just trying to get some textures in there. And again, not being too pedantic with trying to get every single detail in there. Again, just giving a hint and an illusion of texture. And if I feel that this is slightly too striking, it's slightly too white, I'm just going to brush back in. Brush some of the value. And I would always recommend that. The only time you want something absolutely as white could be is maybe up in the shine of this eye. Apart from that, whenever I take value out with any eraser, whether that's a monozero razor, which is what I'm using now, or my kneaded eraser, I will always go back in and just brush over the whole area again, just to take some of the harshness out of it. So we're starting to get a reasonable representation now of this slightly different texture that we have within this scarf. And when you're looking for reference images or you're taking photographs of things to draw, I think there's two things that I certainly look for, and that is, are there enough opportunities to develop contrast in values? So have we got some very dark areas mixed by some light areas, some shadowed areas, etc. And have we got some nice contrast within the textures of the picture? So in this picture we've got skin, hair and textile material. That gives us a fantastic opportunity, like we've said, to make things look more realistic. If you cast your mind back to the baby portrait that we did, which was in one of the earlier lessons, there wasn't an awful lot of contrast in there in terms of textures. We had the soft skin, but then we had the hair. As we're moving on through some of these drawings, we will start to increase some of the texture contrasts. It's always quite nice if you can have a background in there. So a landscape, you know, could sometimes do with having a nice cloudy background. So I'm going to come in now with my HB pencil, because I can see within this scarf area that we've got some, I guess it's some of the gaps within the knitted pattern of this. They're not quite as dark as others. So I don't want, like I said, I don't want to go too dark in all of the areas, because I then have to bring, if I go too dark here, I then have to go darker here. And if I start making these holes here darker than the eye, I need to bring the value up in the eye. If I'm bringing the value up in the eye again, I need to bring the value up in these darker areas here. So that's why it's important that we do keep balancing the values throughout our drawing, so that we then are happy that we've reached a point Don't forget to leave a comment down below, guys. Let me know how you're getting on. If there's something you'd like to learn or draw in future videos, leave me a comment down below. You can also get hold of me on Instagram. That's at artisticn1k. It's the same as the YouTube channel. It'd be brilliant to comment or to connect with some of you on there. Let me know if you've followed. Let me know that you are from the art group, and I will follow back. And I really do appreciate all of the effort that some of you are putting into your work, and the drawings and the comments and the likes and the shares. It really does really help my YouTube channel and the Facebook group that's growing. Like I said, I'm doing all of this for free. I don't make any money out of this. I just want to give back some of the knowledge and the opportunity to, it does sound over dramatic sometimes, but learning to draw really has changed my life. I mean, I'm doing wonderful commissions for people around Christmas times and things like that, and just seeing some of my work out there is fantastic, wonderful. It's an opportunity to do things and make people happy that I hadn't experienced before. So if we can share that, then all the better. So like I'm saying, every like and comment and share that you do put on, the Facebook pages or the channel really does help the channel and give more people the opportunity to discover this wonderful way of expressing themselves. Have quite a lot of people that talk about doing digital work and saying, well, in this age of digital work, is pencil work and graphite work, traditional artwork, is it still relevant? And I think it's more relevant now. In the era that somebody can take a photograph and use an app on their mobile phone to turn it into a cartoon, anybody can do that. But to get somebody to draw you a bespoke piece, one that is original and has taken time and passion and care, has got far more, in my opinion, relevance in this day and age now than ever before. Anybody could take a photograph and frame it of this young lady, but not everybody can have a picture that's been hand drawn. Okay, I'm getting quite excited about this scarf now. Now I'm starting to take out some of the value in certain areas with the kneaded eraser. I can start to see that we are getting somewhere with it. Now what we've also got here is we've got some hairs that are falling over the scarf in various different directions, and it's these opportunities that I absolutely love, because this is where we start to get the realism. The hair isn't all falling in a regimented style and fashion. It's crisscrossing, it's moving in certain areas. So I'm just going to have a go at taking some of those out now. Which again is going to give me another layer of depth. I'm going to brush some of the graphite again into those places, and they will always remain lighter. Even after I've now brushed in some of the graphite, they will still remain lighter. So I think that's enough for today's lesson. I can probably see another 1 or 2 lessons before we finish this. So what I want you to do is continue adding some more value into these darker areas, bring out some of this lighter hair. Keep working on the texture of the scarf, and I'll see you in the next video when we're sort of caught up to that level. And then next week or next lesson, what we're going to be doing is starting to bring a little bit more value into some of the darkest areas, taking out some of the value in the cheeks here because I can see we need to go darker, and just balancing and final touches, maybe using some of our secret weapon that we learnt last project with the eye. But thanks so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. Don't forget, leave me a comment, like this video, share it, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Contact me over on the Facebook group. I try and reply to all messages and all pictures on there. The group's growing by the day. We're well over 2,000 members of the group now. So thank you so much for that and all of your kind words. And I'll see you in the next video. Hit subscribe, smack the notifications button, follow me on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter.